I think it's time. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. To me, it's already like past sunset, and it's my honor to welcome you all in our Adobe Analytics office hours. I'm Benj, and aside from being full time in marketing analytics with Philips, I also love finding trends in the night sky of constellations and roasting marshmallows on campfires. So with me are fellow Adobe Analytics from various backgrounds, from various industry, and with different strengths, and I'll let them introduce themselves first. So, who wants to start first? Champions?
I'm happy to go first. Thank you, Benj, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Jude Lindberg, and I'm really, really happy to be a champion. It's my first year as Adobe Analytics Champion. I work for DHL as a Digital Analytics Manager, and I'm really responsible for looking after the data strategy and driving analytics maturity, particularly for Adobe Analytics within DHL. And in my free time, I like to look after my son, who's into performing arts. I'm a bit of a glee club mom, as you would call that. And I also love traveling and exploring the outdoors. And I really look forward to the session today. So thank you very much for everyone who's joined us. I'm going to hand over to Gibson now. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Gibson, and I'm based in South Africa. It's afternoon on my side, and I'm the Adobe Analytics specialist here at NetBank. It's a financial institution, and this is my second year as an Adobe Analytics champion, and it's been a great honor to represent some of the Adobe Analytics enthusiasts out there. And besides work, what I like doing is that I like figuring how things work. So I do have a software development background. And for relaxing, what I do is that I normally watch some Netflix reality shows. Thank you. I'll hand over to Frederick.
All right. Hi, I'm Frederick. I work as the head of analytics at a company called, it's over there, but I need to change it, at Accutex, that logo. So we make software that works really well with Adobe Analytics and other analytics solutions. And it's my third year as a champion, second year as president of the Adobe Analytics Champion. And outside of work, I like gardening and oiling snakes. Won't give any more context to that. Over to Isha.
Hi everyone, I'm Isha and I'm working as a digital analytics lead in 3 Ireland. So I'm currently in Ireland, but I'm originally from India, and this is my first year as Adobe champion, and I'm really excited for this. And in my current organization, I'm responsible for managing entire digital analytics infrastructure, from tagging, reporting, recommending, presentations, and everything. And we are primarily using Adobe Analytics here. I have over 10 years of experience in this industry, and I'm looking forward to the session today and chatting with you all folks. Thank you.
Now you've heard it from them, and we'll go straight to your questions. So, some few reminders of housekeeping. Mandy has dropped the YouTube link for this office hours. So, this is recorded, and you will find it later in that YouTube link. It will be uploaded there. And yeah, as mentioned also by Mandy, if you have any question, feel free to drop in the chat and we'll answer it. So, we'll try to answer a few questions first based on the pre submitted questions. So, let me share my screen. Do you see my screen? Hold on. I think. Okay, now I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Let me know if you can't see.
We can see it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, champions, anyone who want to tackle first the first question?
Thank you, Benji. I'll start with the first question there. So the first question that we received it was regarding the S product merchandising EVA. So I think the person that could have asked this probably they are busy with doing the implementation of an e-commerce application, or the application that they have does have some like e-commerce functionality. So the S product variable is one of the most like complex variable. Like if it's your first time working with it, but once you understand it, I think it becomes much easier. And then even if you're not dealing with the implementation, and then you're just like creating reports, I think it's important for you to understand how the S product variable works so that you can be able to interpret the report correctly. So the first thing that you should note is that there's a certain number of fields that needs to be populated in the S product variable. The first one is the category, followed by product name, quantity, price, events, and your merchandising EVAs. So some of these variables are not mandatory. The only required variable is product name, right? And another important thing to note is that if you use this variable without assigning any event, it will trigger the product view event automatically for you. So you just need to make sure that whenever you're implementing this variable, you follow the correct syntax, which is listed below. Firstly, you start with your category, which you can either exclude product name, and when it comes to your product name, you can use a unique identifier because the variable has got a limitation of, I think it's 100 characters, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're working with products, just make sure that you use like the SKU, which would most likely to be unique. And if you want to have like a more descriptive name of the product name, you can either add it to your merchandising EVA, which is where your merchandising EVA come along. So your merchandising EVA allow you to add extra context to your product variable. So you can either add probably the size, or if it's a shoe, if it's, let's say it's an iPhone, you can either add the model of the iPhone. You can add so much things to your merchandising EVA. And one thing to note is that the variable, it's a hit-based variable. So you just need to know that it will be triggered, but when it's triggered as a hit-based variable. So yeah, just make sure that whenever using this variable, you use the syntax correctly to make sure that the data collected is correct. And yeah, you won't have any hassles. And I remember back then when I was doing my Adobe Analytics developer certification, they had this question more, and it becomes a bit tricky if you're not familiar with it. So you just need to make sure that you understand the syntax correctly, and you won't have any issues. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gibson. Any follow up from any champion, or you want to add on? If none, we can proceed with the next.
Yeah, I think the next topic to cover is marketing channel. So marketing channel itself is a very broad topic, and marketing channels allow you to kind of identify the channels, the paths, how your visitors are discovering your websites or mobile applications. So it's kind of getting the deeper insight into the identification methods, and also if we have ongoing campaigns, ongoing, let's say, display ads or affiliates going on, then it lets us correctly attribute the allocation to the correct channel based on the conversion metrics. So depending on which attribution model we are choosing, so there are plenty of attribution models to choose from. We can select the attribution of first touch or last. We can select how much percentage of attribution we want to give to the first touch or the last touch channel. So there is a set process of enabling marketing channels in your Adobe Analytics report suite. Before that, we can see some common marketing channels that are available. So some common methods of identification are paid search, which is like traffic which is generated through paid search campaigns, paid social, organic social, email, display, affiliates. So it's like everything is depending on how your organization is set to receive traffic. It could be that only one affiliate is sending traffic to your website, or it could be that you have multiple affiliates set up. It could be some keywords that you want to identify at paid search, or it could be different campaigns that you have set up on your social or other channels. So depending on each organizational structure, it's pretty much independent of how you want to do it. Now, the process of configuring marketing channels in Adobe Analytics Report Suite is pretty straightforward, and it's very much guided through Adobe itself. So if first off, we need to start with identifying the possible marketing channels which are available in our organization. Then we have to create, so it's an optional process to create a campaign generator tool, but it's recommended. Like I will always recommend to create a campaign generator tool because it lets you create a uniform URL structure across all your marketing and your all your teams. So you just have to distribute it, and then all you have to do is they it will let you input your landing page URL along with any sort of campaign that you want to run. For example, if it's an affiliate, you can just append an AFF for that. If it's email, you can append EML for that, and then you can use that to identify which channel it is coming directly in Adobe Analytics. Then, depending on the query parameter that you have selected, it could be CID or campaign ID or anything, any query parameter that your organization is using. You can select either you can have the implementation done in your tag manager solution to capture the query parameter, and then you can send it to your EVAR0, which is tracking code, and any other external campaign code. Or and it's important to enable get val once, which is an Adobe plugin, which will let you capture the value only once and prevent any duplication of the same value. Then once you have configured tracking code and associated EVARs, then you need to go to marketing channel processing rules. So the process is that you have to go to admin, and then you have to go to report suites, and in that you can just go to select a report suite, go to edit settings, and in that you will have a marketing channel manager. And then either you select the channels, which is the default setup available by Adobe, or you can just skip it altogether if you're confident that you can set up your marketing channels by yourself. Then once you have done that, then then there are different kind of attributions available. For example, you can use a master report suite and then use that as a template to apply same marketing channel processing rules to rest of your report suites. And if you have different terms that you're capturing in your tracking code, then you can use a regex based classification to separate it out, and you can use the first field as your campaign marketing channel identifier. And there are some limitations, like you can only use 25 marketing channel processing rules, and it is strictly retroactive. So if when you have started it, it's always advisable to configure your marketing channel processing rules before start of the campaign, otherwise you will lose the data. And there are some other best practices, like there is a default check which is done, like override last ditch channel. So if you would just uncheck it, then you would not correctly attribute any uh, incorrectly attribute any channel to an incorrect value. For example, if you will keep it checked, then if your last touch is direct, then the conversion will be attributed to the direct channel, which is not exactly a channel light, because direct happens when user have just favorited and if they're pasting a URL in the browser. So it's always advisable to uncheck override last ditch channel. And also, depending on your organization needs, you can set up your channels as required. So and this is an going on and on and on topic, but I have kind of added the basics. If anyone would like to anything else, or if anyone would like to ask any questions on it, I think that'd be great.
I just want to add on to what Isha mentioned, like in marketing analytics, this is very crucial as well, because even if we already have the default channels in your configuration of your Adobe Analytics, sometimes I saw some display ads that are attributed to paid search or the other way around. Because for example, the display or the different channel is the bidding is cost per click instead of the CPM. Sometimes it goes to paid search. So it's very important to when that if you want to drill down further, because for example in your business, depending on your business stakeholders, they would ask, okay, which channel are we going to invest more, or which format of ads are going to invest more. So your external or your tracking codes is very crucial, like what Isha already mentioned. And also like the common fields that you can capture with your codes, you can include even which image or campaign content, which messaging, which image, which type or which format. Is it the square or the rectangular display ad? So it's the to the nitty-gritty part. It will help you, it will save your analysts some time to deep dive on your data.
Yep. And I would also like to mention one more thing that kind of came out of it, that it is very important the order of your processing rules. So if it is your if the display is your first, and it's always like paid search is always above organic, because if you keep organic above and paid below, then organic will always get the default. It will pick up the keywords and it will have the default configuration. So it's like the order of your processing channel matters a lot. And in the end, if you always keep a catch-all kind of processing rule, which could be a referring domains, or if it could be direct, then it will prevent your traffic to be identified as traffic to be not identified. And speaking of the same thing, if you will keep your direct as the first one, right, then you will never be able to identify any marketing channel. So it's very important that you have the proper, you follow your marketing channel processing order. And there is very good documentation from Adobe that has all the documentation, all the recommendations, FAQs and everything. And I have inserted the link on top, but I can also send it over here if you want to know more about it. Yeah.
Pretty good.
Thanks,
That's
Isha.
just to add from my side as well. Like two things I want to like add just from the title of the panel. Like one thing that companies struggle a lot with is to like obviously put the right tracking codes and like the right CADs on like each and every piece of their traffic. So I'm just going to put that link in the chat like in a second. Like there's a company that can help you with that. I'm not going to say anymore because like that's something that a lot of companies these days like do through tools that are dedicated for that. Like you should, if you're doing that with Excel still, like there's better ways to not Excel, how it's probably pronounced. You should stop that and like use a correct tool for that. And also because like the question, it was just those three terms for us to jump to, but like the question also mentions merchandise EVAs. Merchandise EVAs are a whole topic and a whole rabbit hole in itself. So like there's merchandise EVAs in product and conversion syntax. There's many use cases for that. So what I'm also going to submit in the chat in a second is a session that's 1 hour long, because that's how long you can talk about merchandise EVAs, by Adam Greco, like also former Adobe Analytics champion before he went to Amplitude, and he did a very good session and very informative session on merchandise EVAs in special. So I just put that in the chat, and you can then also look at that if you're interested in those topics.
Thanks, Frederick. And since it's your turn,
Oh, well. No, responsive layouts in a nutshell for you. If you can make that a little bit wider, because I don't think it works too well with the Zoom. Thank you. So, question is, what are some of the use cases of the main entities of the identity? Experience Cloud Identity Service, Experience Cloud ID, ECID, and Experience Platform Identity Service. So that's a big topic and a big question in itself. So I was just starting to brainstorm like around the topic in itself. So of course, what all of that is like set out to do is, back in the days where you had like at least 4 different libraries on your website for Adobe Analytics, Adobe Target, Adobe Audience Manager, like all the Adobe tools, one challenge that always came up is, how do we identify the same users from Adobe Analytics in Adobe Target? How do we make sure that the people from Adobe Analytics are the same in Adobe Audience Manager? And there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of integrations back in the days to make sure that it actually works nicely together and you can actually share data between the solutions. And that's when the Experience Cloud ID service came along, which is a way to give one and the same user ID to all of your website users. So that's still in the, don't want to call it legacy days with like app measurement, because it's still what you do today, but it's still like the recent way of identifying users. So you put another library on your website. That library gives your user in your browser one ID that's valid for all the Adobe solutions on your website. So if you want to, for example, build a segment in Adobe Analytics for users who did something, and then you want to, for example, do some personalization in Adobe Target with those users, then the ECID service takes care of giving them one ID across all solutions, the ECID, the Experience Cloud ID. And then you can actually share a segment, which is also one of the use cases I'm mentioning there, segment sharing. You can create a segment throughout Experience Cloud that every solution can access, and you can say, all right, this group of people who I identified in Adobe Analytics through some behavior, I want to use them for targeting in Adobe Target. And then you can actually do that because the same user is identified in the same way across your solutions. You have the same user in all of them, and you can actually make that connection. One more use case, especially for also actually valid for all the Experience Cloud solutions, but especially relevant for Adobe Target and Adobe Analytics, is custom attributes. So with the ECID service, you have the option of for every user upload a set of like whatever attributes you want to give them. So for example, the ECID service has a method to tell it your customer ID. So if your customer logs into your page, you can tell through the through the ECID service what customer ID that customer might be having. What you can then do is similar to classifications. You can then upload a file into the customer attributes interface that tells you this person is a premium customer, or this person is a platinum customer, or what their customer lifetime value from your backend system is. So it really allows you to upload that person level information. It's not just as normal classifications on products or marketing campaigns or whatever, but actually the person who's using the page. And then you can again use that, for example, in Adobe Target to say, I want to show a different home page to my premium or to my whatever customer level I have users. And that's something where you can use the ECID service to tell Adobe what the customer ID is of your customers, and then upload all those attributes, which is cool. One more use case, cross-domain identification, because especially today with Apple and Google cracking down on cookies and all that, it becomes more and more challenging to actually identify users across domains. And the Experience Cloud ID service and also the new Platform ID service has a method to actually pass along when a user clicks from domain A to domain B, the user ID. So if you have the same report suite or the same Adobe Target instance present on both domains, you can actually identify and target your users across domains. So that's super cool, and that's a method of the Experience Cloud ID service. It's called Append Visitor ID 2, and with the web SDK, it's like Append Identity 2 or something like that. So like Google is your friend on that front, but there's methods to pass along the user IDs across domains. And then last but not least, that's something for the new Web SDK and the Experience Platform ID service. So when you have Web SDK on your page, you can actually define a first-party user ID. And that can be coming from whatever system you like. You need to build that yourself. But it could be a very durable first-party cookie, for example. And if you add that along to the Web SDK and the ID service, then it will actually use that, whatever ID it is, instead of the Experience Cloud ID that it would normally give to your users. So you can actually take control of your visitor identification. You can actually make it a little bit more durable, a little bit more up to date in terms of cookie like restrictions that we have today. And yeah, try to identify your users in your own systems. That's what I had.
Yeah, and I did some less complicated ones. So Frederick gave very advanced examples of these. So I would just say that if you only have Adobe Analytics system, like as we have right now, so in that it gets little complicated to identify a user across. For example, if your user has started one process from one device, and then user authenticates himself at some point of time, and then once user authenticates, you will have their login ID, and for that same login ID, if the user performs authentication on another device, then you have the user ID in both systems, right? Now if you want to browse users historical sessions, now because you have their authenticated profile with you, so it is something that you might want to do on your data lake if you have, or your CDP, for example, if you have Teradata. So in that, what you can do is you can use your Marketing Cloud Visitor ID as a prime. You can use your authenticated ID, which would really be your email or your phone number, in an SHA-256 hash format or any hashing algorithm that you prefer. And then you can use that as a key to connect between users, authenticated and unauthenticated profiles, and identify users across different systems. So it's like you can call your user because unique visitors are typically identified based on the browser ID, which is your ECIDs, but you will be able to create a people metric. Like it's a makeshift people metric, but you would be able to have some profiles generated out of it. Other simpler use cases that because the ECID has an expiration of 2 years, so each time a user comes to your website, you will have a visit number associated with them. So it's very useful when, in terms of your customer loyalty, if you want to look at your customer retention, if you want to see how many times a user is frequenting on your website, you can look at visit number report from the which is primarily based off this ECID. So those were the ones that I wanted to add. If anyone else has anything else to add.
Yeah, just to add from my side, when looking at client identifying information, like it's usually not best practice to store the data within Adobe Analytics. So what you might want to store is an anonymous identification, such as the Adobe Experience Cloud ID, which you can then link with your enterprise data systems, right? So you would need some kind of an ID that you can store within Adobe Analytics because you don't want to find yourself like sharing like emails or cell phone numbers to the Adobe Analytics platform. So I think you will still need to rely on your enterprise data systems to be able to stitch the data together to be able to like interpret that ID that you've just collected from Adobe Analytics. Thank you.
So before we move to the next question, if there's any question in the chat, and any champion, you can just read it aloud. I can see the chat, but if there's none, we can proceed.
I think we can go through the pre-submitted one, but I do see some that we're going to answer later.
Okay, Frederick.
No, that guy again, sorry. Yes, so question was, things to keep in mind when migrating from app measurement to web SDK. So, just for the ones unaware, there is a new way to implement Adobe Analytics and other Experience Cloud solutions that is called the Web SDK. It's the successor of all the isolated libraries like App Measurement JS, AT.js, DIL, and like all those separate like solution libraries that I've mentioned before. So it's a new way to bring all of that into onto your website. Doesn't matter which solution it is. Like if we want to fall for like marketing buzzwords and all that, it's also server-side tracking technically because it like collects all of your requests, send them to the server, and that's decided which solution like gets to contribute to the response and all that. So if you want server-side tracking with Adobe, then the Web SDK is your way to do that. Like the obvious like caveat when thinking about that type of project is you're going to re-implement your whole solution. Like you now have Adobe Analytics on your page. You're doing that in the current way. If you change the way you do that, you change everything. So that's what you need to keep in mind. It's a big change, probably one of the like biggest without like switching out your whole tech measure. So if you're using Adobe Launch, like you're going to need to touch all of your Adobe Analytics rules because they now work differently. It's a separate separate library. It's a completely new way to build up rules. There's ways to still build up your S object. So if you're using something like set vars a lot to like build your like tracker object through multiple rules, there's still ways to do that. Like they work very differently. Like Jim Gordon on his blog like recently had a blog post about like how to send data to AEP as well. There's many ways to structure your data. If you're going for Web SDK, you need to use like your XDM schema in Experience Platform. So it's a whole new world. That's like the biggest biggest warning I can give. Like don't underestimate the effort that it's going to take because it's basically as if you would be migrating to Google Analytics. Everything works differently there. Like you're going to do it all over, and something you will be able to transfer, some you won't be. So, if you're doing things like do plugins, for example, to add data to the tracker when like the call is going out, there's ways to do that. It works all very differently, and you need to investigate how to actually do that. Of course, one of the like biggest changes is, as I said, the like XDM structure. So we now have in Adobe Analytics things like EVA 1, EVA 2, EVA 3. like which doesn't mean anything. Like that might hold some data that is related to each other. It might not. It's just a flat list of things that you can track. With Web SDK, you're using schemas from Experience Platform, and there you actually have something like your page object, and within the page object, you have something like the page name, and there's like your page URL in there. So it's semantically structured, which is cool because we can actually read it, and they're not like, what is EVA 3? Like, what does that mean? Like, nobody knows. With the Web SDK and the XAM schema, you can actually see, all right, it's the name object within the page object within the web object. So it's your web page name. So there's actually a big advantage there. But again, totally different to what we do today. As I said, no S object to build up, but like the launch extension for Web SDK, which you should use. You can also make your life really hard and difficult by not using it and using the JavaScript library directly, but don't. So that's a way to make your life really hard. But yeah, there's ways to also build up your tracker object in there if you like that. But launch kind of works in a more, like, technically speaking, more of a getter than a setter type of mentality anyways. So like it's very much data layer reliant. Of course, if you're using plugins today to, for example, see all your tracking calls go out, like the Adobe Analytics, how's it called? That's not the plugin I have. Adobe Analytics Debugger. It doesn't say anything, but that's how it's called. So if you have plugins like that, they will just stop working because right now they are listening for a request that's going out to a certain domain, which is different with Web SDK. They're listening for requests that have like EVA set in them, which don't exist anymore with Web SDK. So also all the plugins you might be using might stop working. It depends a lot. But yeah, that's also another complication in there, of course. What else? Yes, third-party integrations, of course, also need rework. So, for example, if you're using Adobe Analytics today and you integrate with Decibel Insights for session recording, for example, there's a very convenient way of Decibel to set like your session ID into an EVA directly. That doesn't work if there's no EVAs anymore and if the object is named differently and all that. So basically everything that in the past has like natively integrated with Adobe Analytics needs to be changed as well by the vendor or by yourself to work with something else. There's just a lot of integration work there, of course. And of course, if you already have users on your website and you start using all those new identification methods and all those new libraries, you don't want to like basically reset all of your user history to the first visit and the first hit, right? You want to see like that person has come 10 times before, but like in the old library, you don't want to use all that history. And like there's ways to migrate, for example, the set cookies. On the other hand, if you set the wrong checkbox in the configuration, you might just lose all that history because Web SDK is going to be like, yep, we don't have any cookie that I recognize. Maybe you start using first-party IDs and forget about your old cookies. And suddenly all of your users start in the first visit without any previous history. And that's, of course, something you should work to avoid. One of the opportunities then, besides like the semantic structure, which is generally nicer to use, I think, is data prep, which is basically it's like Experience Platform's version of processing rules. So it's a way to kind of modify your data as it's being collected. It's even more fancy than processing rules. And if you're still using Adobe Analytics, you get both data prep and processing rules. So you can just continue to use your old ways if you don't want to let go of processing rules and just start using like data prep for use cases that you couldn't do before. But yeah, there's some very cool stuff in there in terms of like really like modifying your data as it's being collected, and it's a cool way to like a cool way to like modernize your way to collect data a little bit. And yeah, that's everything I have to say about that, I think. Sorry for the monologuing. I like to do that, but well.
Thank you, Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, Frederick. I think you have covered the technical details very well when it comes to migrating to the Web SDK. So, firstly, I think what I'll do from my side is to share some of the experience and knowledge that we've experienced, because recently we've been in the journey of migrating our analytics to Web SDK. So I'll just share some of the important things that I think you should know. I think the first thing is to have a proper migration plan, as Frederick has explained that you're going to have to change your entire implementation. So you need to go and assess how the implementation has been done and look at what is different from the web SDK, and you will find like a lot of things totally different to the way the implementation is done to the web SDK. And I think your developers are not going to like you when once you start telling them that they will have to rewrite the entire implementation of the Adobe Analytics and ask you like, why are you doing it? Obviously, I mean, you do have your own reasons in terms of why you're doing the migration. The web SDK brings so much benefits in terms of like being able to integrate with other Adobe Experience Cloud tools that you can use within your organization. So the first thing that I think you should note is that when you're migrating on the mobile platform, the new web SDK uses the send event function rather than the track state and track action that was previously used in the previous SDK. So that's something to note, so that if the developers had implemented the analytics SDK, they'll have to update these functions within their implementation, and it will be a lot of functions that they need to implement depending on how the implementation has been done. And if there was a helper function that they can just update, that would be very nice. But if they have to go through line to line and update this, unfortunately, that's one of the things that will have to be done. But I think, going forward, there should be a better way that this could be done. Secondly, our mobile analytics implementation was using the out-of-the-box action name, which we used it a lot for any activity that was being tracked on the app, right? So once the app loads, would track that as an action. Once you interact with the button or anything, that was being tracked as an action. So we didn't have an additional EVA or props that we were using to track such actions. So we're using the out of the box action variable. So what we found out during the migration is that we didn't have a way to pass the action name to the web SDK implementation. So I think even now we're still trying to find out a solution for this. And I think once we do find a solution, we'll share it with the community through the Adobe channels. But that's something that you should know, that whenever you're doing the migration, I think another important thing is that when you do migrate, you want to keep things as business as usual, right? So the people that have the reports created within Workspace, you don't want them to go to the reports and find that there's data missing. So if there was some data that was being sent to EVA1, as an example, you need to make sure that that EVA1 still is still collecting data, and your data people can still be able to work. Because if you're going to change your variables and start using different variables within Workspace, you're gonna be having a lot of work, firstly of updating those reports and having to do another training to make sure that people understand how to create the reports by themselves. And also it's going to affect your historical reports. So if you change or misalign the variables, you might not be able to align with your historical data. You might need to like use multiple variables. It's going to be a lot of work. So hence I'm saying you probably need a proper plan, analyze the environment, and then understand what already exists, and then so that you can know what are the disadvantages and what are the things that you need to prepare for before going forward. And another one is the product variable. So we've already spoken about the product variable, which is the S dot product variable within the app measurement. If you're using Launch, and you will be using the Adobe Analytics extension. So how we previously set these variables, it's you would use the as the product syntax to pass the data to Adobe Analytics. But within AEP, as Frederick has already mentioned, that there's a schema, and there's an XDM format that is being used there. So you would be using a product, a different product format or syntax. So you would see that instead of setting the product name or the product category the way you used to into a single variable, then you have to set the product name using the SKU or the product name object. So all of that is there in the Adobe Analytics documentation and experience leak. So just something to note. And I think lastly, it's when you're sending data to the edge network or to AEP. Another thing that you would have noted is that with Adobe Analytics, you can just send anything like a string, an integer, or anything like that. It would be able to interpret it, or it would be able to collect it. But with the new AEP or the existing AEP platform, you will see that once you start sending your data to your data sets, it is kind of a strict in a way. It wants you to conform to the data type. So if you are sending a string to an integer, you would experience that some of your data sets are failing. So you would need to make sure that you are sending the correct data. And there's also benefits in terms of why it's being done that way, because you can be able to interpret and process your data in a more efficient way and do some advanced calculations to the data. Yeah, that's it with regards to the migration.
Thanks, Frederick. If and so thanks, Gibson and Frederick. So anyone who wants to add to that, if none, we can proceed with the next question.
Oh,
Frederick?
sounds like we can go ahead. Should have prepared like the blog post I was going to share for this. But yeah, question is, should I duplicate my props into EVAs, vice versa, and should I have an EVA for page name? So, my like slightly opinionated answer to that is no. So, what you need to be aware of is in Analysis Workspace, people are going to be looking for page name. If they find that in there once, they know what to do. If they find it in there 3 times, they will be like, which one is the right one? So there's ways around that to use like curation on term like in virtual report suites or also in projects and in templates and all that. But like the underlying change of like bringing the same stuff in multiple times. In the old days, there was a reason for that, with like attribution and persistence in EVAs being always only set once. And like if you have an EVA that's valid for the full visit, you have one for that. If you have one for the full user journey, then you have one for that. Today, you can just do that in Attribution IQ. So I don't know if we want to do any live demos, but like if we were to drag like the page dimension in here and like any custom event, then we would just be able to use Attribution IQ to do the same thing. So a lot of that is now available in real time. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's required anymore. For the second part of that, an EVA for page name. The trouble with the built-in page name is that it's only set on page views. So even if you send it in with your custom link codes, like your button clicks or whatever, like it's still going to be thrown away. Adobe does not want to have it. They discard it if you send it in with custom link events. So for that reason, for page name, I would make an exception there and say, all right, there it's okay to put it into an EVA just to make some things easier, but then you should think of ways to then maybe hide the built-in page name through curation, and all those features, which you can do and basically make it as easy as possible for users to use. And what I said there, like in terms of props being more powerful than EVAs, I'm just going to share the blog post I've written about that 4 years ago, as I recognize in astonishment. Like that's actually like a love letter to props as a feature, because they can do things that EVAs cannot do, like for example list support, like for example entry and exit dimensions. So you can just have your entry whatever and your exit whatever. If you're tracking, like, I don't know, page name is an easy example, but if you're tracking the name of a button or like whatever you like, you automatically can enable like pathing for that, so you have entry and exit dimensions. So yeah, in my mind, I'm always like, people these days like tend to default to EVAs for everything, and they're like, yeah, just use an EVA for everything. I'm like, no, like unless I need the full 255 characters of an EVA for something, like I'm going to use a prop for that because then I have entry and exit dimensions. So yeah, but I wouldn't recommend duplicating it because no real no real reason to do that these days. And when in doubt, I would always go for a prop first unless I need the length for that. But that's just me. Everyone else can feel free to disagree.
Who disagrees?
Who dares?
If the
Well,
one dares to disagree, can continue, Frederick. So, Frederick, how do you feel?
Well, yes, you see my introvert, long-winded answer there. So, question is, how do I see what others in my organization are working on as an admin? Is there a way to see workspaces, segments, etc. that aren't shared? So, first thing to point out, if you click on admin at the top, there's a. If you do that right now, bench, and click on all admin. Maybe in a new tab so we don't lose it. Well, or we can go back.
Okay.
So what you see there is what we saw there a second ago.
Okay, here.
Yes, in the tab that you just opened, presumably, when we
What
were in the admin menu. Sorry,
Okay, admin. Okay.
now confuse everyone. Sorry. So in the admin menu under admin, there's a section called logs, and within logs you will find logs, and that's just log files of your activity in Adobe Analytics. And those logs contain, for example, from your users, which workspaces they see, like what they do to calculate the metrics and segments and all that kind of stuff. So it's very powerful in that. There's also a dedicated section within logs to just see admin actions, like for example, changing the like settings of an EVA, like enabling something, disabling something. So there's very powerful ways to do that. Actually, should
Want me to
point
go?
out. Sorry.
It's here. Yeah, here.
Oh, yeah.
It's logs.
Logs.
Admin,
Exactly.
all admin logs. Okay.
So if you click
Want me to
that,
click?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And in Adobe Lightning Speed.
Light years.
It's the usual Adobe admin experience. Sorry. Biting the hand that brings me on here. But yeah, for example, if you extend the date range to like 2023 on the left, we can just see if there's like any logs. Yeah, just the left one. You can just change the value in the text field. The other
I'll
left.
change this too. What do you mean?
Like just the last year, just
Ah,
so we
okay.
can see something. Perfect.
I'll just hold on. Just put 23.
Yes. Exactly. And if you click search, then that's a good time to show that. Then you see logs. So you can see in this case it was Sarah who changed marketing channels. So we were talking about marketing channels before. So if you're like, hey, all my stuff stopped working, who was that? Then you can see, all right. In this case, somewhere in beginning last year, someone changed the marketing channels around. Of course, that's like very helpful if you want to dig into your logs, and yeah, just see who did what and who was using what. And again, one more blog post to share in the chat. Like I swear we didn't select the questions like in regards to which we are able to answer with blog posts, but like there's ways to through the API pull the logs out of Adobe Analytics automatically and pull them into something like Power BI. And if you ask me, then like the one KPI you should be driving towards as an analytics team, as a company, is your number of active analytics users per month. And that's something you can easily track through the usage logs and with Power BI. Yeah, that's also fully automated.
I'll go back to the workspace.
Yes, thank
Can
you.
I just quickly add to that? Like, I've just recently been on the Create Reports and Analytics 2 instructor-led Adobe course. And part of that course, the instructor was actually covering like really good tips on like how to extract the logs into Excel as well. So if you don't have Power BI or Python, there is also ways that you can extract it into Excel and you can clean it up. So I can send a link to that course as well if anyone is interested in doing that as well.
Nice.
Isha.
Yep, and I've also added the same. Like I think Python code is already shared, so it was a requirement in my organization to integrate Adobe admin logs with our security system. So this Python code has JWT authentication for now. I have to move it to OAuth soon, but is happening here is that we are using API to get code from Adobe admin, and when we access code through API, then it will be codes instead of the actual so there is a category, right? There will be code. So I have used Python code to translate that into actual text, and then there was some formatting that needs to be done, and then it's being integrated with uh, the security system on daily basis. So this script was pretty handy for us to just extract logs every day, send to our admin, send to our security system, and then we can potentially uh, just identify, as Frederick mentioned, active users, and there were some other security concerns that our organization wanted to look into. So that's also a good thing. I'll paste the code here in chat as well if anyone needs that.
Okay, we have 4 minutes left, and I think we can accommodate one more question. Well, let's see,
No,
Frederick.
well, like we can, like, I think that's one of the older ones. Like there was a question in chat that many wanted us to jump to, which was about how do you integrate Adobe's real-time CDP in AP with Adobe Analytics, and like that meme, like here's the nice thing, you don't. So like depending on what you want to get out of that integration, because like RTCDP is very much integrated in the Experience Platform, which is like the new thing. Like it would really depend on what you want to integrate on. But yeah, it's not really there. Like there's no really like a way to integrate both tools. So yeah, that's like the long and short of that. But also like it depends on what you want, because like with RTCDP just being a CDP, there's not really that much to pull out. So if you have more details, you can use the 3 minutes we have to put that in the chat again. Well, I'm just going to continue with this then. So, question is: if offline uploaded data is to be reprocessed after a failure, will data in Adobe Analytics be duplicated or overridden? If the data is duplicated, then how to detect duplicate data and how to rectify it? So, what I assume in this answer is that you're talking about data sources. So if you upload data through data sources into Adobe Analytics, which you should be doing, and there's a company who can help you with that. If you want to upload data into Adobe Analytics for like Google Ads, like offline, like offline sales and all that interesting stuff. If you basically, for example, make a mistake and upload the same data twice, it will insert the data twice. So if you say yesterday had 10 orders and you insert that twice, then it will be 20 orders in Adobe Analytics. Good thing is, if you've done that on accident, all you need to do is upload another file that says minus 10 orders for that day, and it will do the math and be like, all right, 10 plus 10 minus 10 is 10. So it will actually show the right number then. So it will kind of add the data to the already existing data if there is any. And if you make a mistake, like the easiest way to do that is to just pull the data you have in Adobe Analytics, like that is incorrect in some way. Like in Excel, just like pull up the right number right beside that, make a difference. So like do a minus of whatever you like. So you get like the delta file that you need to upload, like the correction file. And then you just upload that, and then you just have like whatever is left, right? So if you have 11 orders in Adobe Analytics, you only want to have 10, you upload -1, and then it will be 10 left. So
Okay,
that's how you can do that.
I think we can squeeze this in.
And I can't answer first because
Okay, go.
I shouldn't be answering first because the one thing I'm not as quick. So Isha, do you want to take
Okay.
it?
Yeah, yeah,
Isha.
yeah.
Nice.
So okay. So it was like, do you want to have a mix of date range or not? So I would say it is important if you have if you want to show a comparison. So there is a very good visualization which I've just used here, which is key metric summary. So if you just pull it down, then if you can just click on the edit button, uh, which then yeah. So on the edit button here, you can see that you can select your metric and then primary date range and your comparison date range. So it is good when you want to show how your metric is performing. For example, if it's your orders and if your panel date range is your month, but you want to see what is the how is your orders, how have your orders been last 7 days compared to 8 to 14 days, and if you want to have any segment here, so it's very good representation of that, and it's like one of my favorite visualization after it has come, and I use it all the time to kind of show the trends, recent trends, and it is always this way. And you can also choose your primary date range as the panel date range and comparison date range as something before the panel date range. So it's you can choose relative date ranges here as well. So this is important to show. And also if you want to show some other metrics, then in each table visualization also you have compare time periods options, which is good to show if you want to show your representations as compared to the months. So I'd say it pretty much depends on your requirement to display how you want to visualize your data, but it's anyway I'd say a practice that kind of depends on the metrics that you're displaying.
Thanks, Isha. Frederick.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much nothing to add. Like it is a good way to confuse users if it's not obvious to them, like which panel is using which date range, and if they change the panel date range and like some visualizations don't change, then they're going to be like, "Huh, what's happening here?" So if it's documented, if it's expected, if people know how to use it, cool, very powerful feature. If not, very good way to confuse them. So it goes all back to training and explaining and showing what you're doing, because otherwise they're going to be like what's happening here. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So the rest of the questions that were not able to answer during this session, you can find it in the Experience League, and you can also keep a lookout for the next Adobe Analytics office hours in February. And I want to thank you, all our Adobe Analytics champions who are here today. Yes, I love the sound effects, Frederick. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
Any other last words?
Thank you everyone, it
Thank you
was
so much.
very
Okay,
nice experience. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
everyone.
let's
Bye.
start recording. Hey, don't leave first. Let's have a picture. I'll screenshot. Okay, hold on. One, one, two, three. Okay. Thank you, and thanks to Mandy as well.
Thank
Bye
you
bye.
guys.
Thank